everybody for today, and we welcome you to the Everything Health and Wellbeing community, as we've always been doing. We are a community that do talk about health and well-being, everything in between, and we've delved into so many topics since we began. We are barely 1 month and a half, and we've done 6 sessions, which today is the 6th episode. So we are coming to you today with dementia, and we are having on board a nurse who specializes in mental health. And yes, we have her today, and she came along with another specialist in mental health. So we are fortunate to have them today on the live. So I'll give the mantle over to her. So I would be recording it. So if the host comes in, she would take it from there. So I will just stand in for her for now. But now she will start presenting until our host comes in. Thank you. So I'll just give the mantle to our host for the day, who is Mrs. Linda Mensah, and who has joined with the husband's link, and then they are going to do it for us today. So thank you all for coming today to listen to us. Welcome, Mrs. Linda Mensah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. So today we're going to discuss about dementia, and I think as the flyers have been going around, people might have had a bit of research and everything about it, or aside that maybe we might have one or two family members who have had this condition before, or friends or something that we know about dementia. Mostly, I believe in interactive discussion because every one of us here has got a bit of knowledge of everything, and we also have things that we also want to learn. So I'm not just gonna present. I'll like in between, I'll also want to know what people also know. So as the slides goes, it says dementia and everything health is the one doing the thing for us today. So if we look at the bigger ones today, if you're looking at a bigger map of dementia, this is purely talking about what goes in the prevention, the syndromes, the quality of life, the age, and the types of the dementias that we have. And we've mixed it all together. And it's more or less like if we think about dementia, whatever goes into dementia is what you find in this slide that my sister has shown up there. So if you don't mind, can we go to the next slide so that we will come back to these ones and do a lot on them? Okay, so when we go to the introduction, so introduction of everything is the beginning. So we are talking about dementia. What came to our mind when we heard the word dementia? So this is a definition, and it depends on who you are reading from and where you are reading from. But in total, everything got to do with dementia has got to do with the brain, memory loss, and cognition, a decline in the cognition. And the school of thought about dementia and what we've studied to know about dementia is when someone is having this condition, it automatically affects their daily life, their communication. It's not like they cannot talk. Not all of them cannot talk. Some of them can talk, but sometimes someone will say, in quotes, whatever they are saying might not make sense. It might not be consistent, and in the midst of a conversation, they may be lost in between or may not be able to tell you how things you want to be. Sometimes they get lost and they change the situation, like working with somebody who is saying, when I was in this country, I got to know of a chicken that was like a cow. Then you go like, wow, can you reduce it? Then they come like, it turned into a goat. Then you say, oh, can you reduce it anymore? And they start crying. So you can see that in this situation, both communication and behavior has changed. So that is exactly what we want to talk about, a bit about the introduction. If anyone has any question, you can raise your hand, or if you want to chip in anything during this presentation too, we welcome you to raise your hand, then we can let you in and also add up. So my partner here also wants to say something in terms of the introduction.
Okay. Hello. I just want to add a little bit. My name is Kofi, and I do work as a mental health practitioner. And I've been working as a mental health practitioner for the past 20 years. So, what I want to add is that yes, dementia is a disease or a form of disability that affects the brain. So what that means is that because the brain controls every part of the body, the neurotransmitters in the brain, when they get impacted, it affects the aspects that it controls. So as my partner actually introduced, I don't want to actually go to the types, which I know that she's going to go through the types, but each type has kind of a good correlation to the pathway that that has been affected. So I just want to add that and keep that in. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we've really said, sometimes I believe in letting people understand how things are. So I always go like, if we are all drivers, or even if we don't know how to drive and we know how to cook, before you cook or prepare anything for it to be of taste, there are certain ingredients that you need. If you mix in one ingredient, the taste changes. If one of the like if you miss anything, everything messes up. So I always use the car. That is how the brain is. A break in a carburetor stops the whole car from working. A break in something also messes up. Maybe any part of the engine also stops the car. That's how our brain also works. So this is how dementia, when we talk about the dementia, it affects. So we are coming to the types of dementia. So there are several types of dementia, but the common ones that are known now, or studies have come to find out, is under this umbrella. So under our umbrella, we've got Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is known to be the most common and frequent ones in this world that mostly affect people. And somebody said it's the condition of the aged, but research still keeps saying that there are varieties of people that are growing now, and you can get as early as 30 years, somebody at the age of 30 having dementia, and it can be Alzheimer's. So we've got the vascular, and we've got the Lewy body, and we've got the frontal temporal dementia. So when we talk about the frontal temporal, it's more or less like it affects the frontal part of your brain. So there are various parts of it that it affects. I always believe in, we want to know what dementia is. So we are not going to bombard ourselves with it affects here. We are not studying the brain and how these things, we just want to know how these symptoms affects us, the myth that comes with it. So if my sister can go on with the next slide. So when it comes to the causes of dementia, because now if you are listening to dementia, we are like, what is causing it? How will I not get it? So we are looking at hereditary. Most of the diseases that we have is caused by hereditary. When we say hereditary, it runs within our families. So some people, no matter the good lifestyle, everything that they do, they will definitely get this condition because it runs between the family. So sometimes you can have a mother, a sister, a daughter, and they are all in a same care home, or they are all under care for this similar condition of dementia. So that is the one that comes under the hereditary. We have the neurodevelopmental disorder. This is when the part of your brain, that is when the frontal ones come in, when that part of your brain has got a disorder. And this disorder can come from so many things. It can sometimes, it's for nobody's fault that they can have this developmental problems, or maybe they don't get enough certain nutrients that helps the brain to develop as well. So we've got the infections. Mostly when people get infection, it depends on where the infection is happening. So whenever there is an infection, it affects several parts of the body. But when it starts affecting the brain, then that is when it start eating certain parts of the brain off. And people, like, let's say if it is that part of your brain that will let you have make you have memory loss, it helps you get confused and all these things, then definitely you're going to suffer from some of these conditions. Then trauma, or trauma to the head or hair injury. So sometimes people get trauma. It can be in a form of an accident or something that might have happened, hitting their head or something. So when people develop this, they come to have sometimes blood clots that blocks certain parts of the brain, and it also blocks oxygen supply to certain parts of the brain, and this can also affect people's reasoning, and it can also make them confused, and it can also have this. So this is when we are going to go to the next slide, which we are going to talk about the symptoms. So when we come to symptoms, we've been talking about the symptoms from the beginning of this presentation. We've talked about memory loss. Losing your memory, this is not the amnesia type whereby you can work on it and you can say people can come on out of it. And it depends on the part of the brain that the symptoms is affecting, that will determine what will be happening. So sometimes the memory that is blocked can be present memory, or sometimes it can be your mid-years memory, or it can be your childhood memory. And it's so sad that when people get some of these memory loss, they don't even recognize or realize their parents, their family members, and all the other people that have been part of their life. And they are likely to even not notice them or remember all the good old days that have happened. And the current people that they find in their life now might be the only thing that they will remember. So it's kind of difficult for families and everybody when some of these symptoms and conditions set in. So when we come to difficulty in concentration, as the word says, people are not able to concentrate on what they are doing. So they can easily burn their houses, burn themselves, and a lot of things can happen to them because they can't pinpoint or do one thing as a goal. So they find it hard to carry out family daily tasks. So you can see that when someone have this condition, you are with your mom, your auntie, your grandma, they are very active, they are good in doing things. Suddenly, we say they've lost interest. They can't do anything. Everything that it's like, oh, they can't even cook and small things. So it makes you angry and you are like, why are you doing this? Even when you've asked them, sometimes the same thing that the person can do continuously, they are unable to do. So when it comes to, they can't go for shopping all by themselves. They can't do a lot of things or change a lot of things, especially when they are into business. They can start to be losing monies and things easily. So these are some of the things that we are talking about. Struggling to follow a conversation or find the right word. So in the midst of a conversation, they can't follow. You can be talking about a football, maybe like, let's say, with no I don't want to, with nothing. I'm not trying to tease anybody. Like, let's say if you know that he or she is a Manchester United fan and you're talking about football and you mention this and they're like, they don't even know how to make the conversation flow, like to continue with words, the choice of words to put somewhere. They might be jamming things up, and these are things that when you see, you should be worried and be looking out for some of these people, and don't think like we have this common things that we say like they are doing it diligently or they are doing it on purpose or they are trying to avoid us, and we also try to leave them to be, and we don't really know how they are suffering or the things that they are going into, and they sometimes don't know where they are, the place that they are in, the time that they are in. They don't know either today is Monday, Tuesday. You ask them these questions and they are even not sure of the year or the time that we find ourselves in. And the most common one is the mood changes and the mood swings. So they can be very happy at a point in time. They can be crying at a point in time. And those times, the swings comes in between. It can be within a jiffy or within a very, very, like, you can be talking to somebody, they will be laughing, then suddenly you see them switch and they will come back and sit down and it's like they are crying. You're like, what happened? What did I say wrong? And at another point in time, you can also see them laughing. So can we please move to the next slide? So this is what we are saying. When I have dementia or when you have dementia, What are some of the things that we think is going to affect us or our family or the community as a whole? So if we look at this, there are several things that is happening, that will be happening. So some of the things that will be happening is, when we say cognition, my inability to concentrate, it can affect my work, it can affect my family life, because if I'm your wife or you are my husband and I'm trying to have a conversation and it's like you are not concentrating, you are not minding, it definitely will become a problem, because there will be a communication barrier over there. And this cognition can cause family breakups, and it can also cause a lot of problems for family, because sometimes children's and parents can also fall out based on these issues, because one will feel I'm not listened to or I'm not wanted. So when we say that activities of daily life like cooking, cleaning their rooms, keeping themselves kept, if people, like, let's say if you have a dad or your wife, then suddenly she doesn't want to have a bath anymore. She doesn't want to brush her teeth. She doesn't keep herself anymore. She doesn't even want to clean the room, and you go there, she's holding papers, she's holding. It's natural that with time you can't tolerate it, because that's not the person you went in for in the initial state. So when it comes to the social aspect, it's affecting us. Economically, you need a lot of effort to clean up their messes, and this can also affect you. And daily lives also include other things as well. So they can't go to work because nobody will want to employ such a person, and a lot happens. So this is how it affects us. So when we come to sleeping difficulties and weight loss and the other things that come, sometimes the brain, because the brain is not functioning well, and they are lost in between times. Instead of sleeping during the night, they will be like they are in their day section. So imagine you sleeping and someone being awake. They are singing, they are shouting, they are pacing up and down. You need to make sure that this person is safe. So that way, it also drains your energy. So by the time you wake up in the morning, that you are supposed to be actually be waking up, you feel tired, and there's a possibility that because you are feeling tired, you might not be able to do things all on your own as well, and it will weigh on you physically. Financially, you might lose your job because you are going to work tired, you are sleeping at work, and a lot of things happening, you needing to take care of people that are closer to you that have this condition. Financially, it's a two burden ways for you, because they are not doing anything and you are the one doing everything. Now, when we come to carer burden, that is, I think it also comes into this, just as I've also explained, and the emotions. It's not easy to look after someone that you've known for a longer time, and suddenly they are behaving like these ways. It's not because they want to, they can't do things for themselves. They become like a burden on you. Emotionally, it stresses you, and it can also make you agitated, because you cannot sleep, you don't have the time to sleep yourself, you don't have the time to do certain things for yourself. So it all becomes like most of everything is about their life, and you have no life anymore. So it can have a lot of so many impacts aside these ones that we've listed over here. So if we can go to the next slide. So when it comes to the demography of the people affected, as we can see from the graph, there's a blue one that is showing Black people, and there's a white. I don't know much about colors, so let's just look at it as they are on the slides, because I don't want to say purple when it's indigo and all those things. So if you look at the slide, they are saying 42%, as in 2009, was 44% was Black people in 1999, and the white ratio of people having 38%, and it drops down to high Hispanics and the Asians. So my question to all of us, let's think about it so that we can also answer ourselves, and looking at this graph. Why are Black people in these graphs having the highest rate when it comes to dementia as compared to the other people? I think we all have to think about this and maybe when we get to the comment section, we can all comment on it. Or if anybody wants to also express their mind on why Black people are having more dementia than as compared to the others. Are we prepared to give it a try?
So, is there anybody that is willing to chip in on the dementia aspect of what she said? She's asking the reasons why Black people do have a lot of dementia, as demography has shown us to know that Black. So most of the time, we think we do not have mental health issues, we do not lose our brains and all of these things. But research is showing that a lot of Black people experience dementia, as it has been shown for 1999. It has also been shown for 2008. And it rounds through that even though there has been a decrease, Black people still maintain that high standard of having more dementia. So what are the things that you think that as a community we are doing to be having more dementia than the other races? So I can see a lot of people that are here. We have Ajewa, we have a Champon, we have Ernestina, we have Atapol, we have KNS. So I think all of us do know people that might have had mental health issues or something like that. So we have to add on to what we are discussing. As a community, it's a conversation that we are here to have. So I would appreciate if we could add our voice to it. So if there is anybody, if there is not, I'll just add on a little bit on it. Then we can move. So today I did a topic on why funerals are becoming a big thing with us. So when it comes to having a funeral, it is a needful right, which is part of our culture, as a way of saying goodbye to the people that we love, that have been part of our lives, and they are now dead. But when it comes to our community, money is really hard to come by. But there are certain things that we add on to this occasion that drains us financially. And it is a mental thing that we are doing. So, for instance, you can't afford to actually clothe yourself or give yourself shelter. But when it comes to going for a funeral, you can actually get 2 different clothes for 2 different days, and then you can't pay your child's school fees. So that pressure is there. That pressure of paying the seamstress is there. All of these pressures. So we have made stress a part of our lives. We have made mental draining of ourselves a part of our life. So let's say a family plans an occasion like funeral, and then they plan on the amount of money they want to invest in the funeral that they want to do. As a family, I might be poor among the family, but somebody else might say, no, we want the funeral to be done this way. We want this kind of coffin and all of that. So somebody's hands is raised. So we'll give you the chance to join in KNS so that you can join in, and then yeah.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. So, like she was asking us to share experience with what we think can cause such stuff. I think the society in general, when it comes to Africa, let me use a part of the world as an example. The how society wants you to mobilize your life, how they expect you to do what they want you to do. But when you, let's say you do what they expect and something hits you at the point, nobody is going to come and pick you up and say, we asked you to do this, but and you've gone through it and it didn't go well. So we are coming to pick you back. So always we at times unconsciously, we are trying to do what the society is expecting us to do. Meanwhile, when you are doing it, nobody is supporting you. So unconsciously, we are doing something we expect people to appreciate us. Put pressure on ourselves. We keep on striving hard to let people appreciate what we do, but at the end of the day, we are not actually getting that. Again, it becomes you keep on thinking about how you can improve upon it. So at times, if you don't limit your expectation as individual to build yourself as you want to build your life, you keep a lot of stress to yourself. So that is the little experience that I can say that I think we as individuals, like Africans, because of a lot of societal pressure and we want to impress people, we actually impose a lot of stress into our life. We keep on pressing harder to impress people. So in the quest of doing that, I think that affects us more. So that is my opinion, if kind of right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Goodness. I think our host is actually in here. So I would hand over to her to continue. So we are actually asking, we are at the demographic. So we've actually said that Black people get a lot of dementia than every other race. But when it comes to Africa, we think that we don't have a lot of mental health issues, and when somebody is even sick, we don't attend to them. So the guest is asking, why do we think that Black people do get more dementia? So we'll hand over to our host. Welcome, Mrs. Akusia Safwa. We'll hand over to our guest.
Okay, so I'll add one or two, then I think my co-guest will also add his. So as my brother KNS rightfully said, there's a lot of pressure on us. Yeah, even if we look at like some of us that had, not just those of us who have had the opportunity to travel, but even those of us back home, especially when you are a first child, or I would say, luckily for you, if God bless you with something, or you have a work that pays well, it's like the whole family burden becomes yours. So you don't really have a life of your own. We hardly go on holidays to release our stress. We hardly have time for ourselves. So it's everything about you thinking about others, how to make their life better. And there's nothing for you to make your life better. So all these stresses and everything can also put much pressure also on us. And some of these things, as he rightfully said, when there are times you need people to be there for you. So when you don't get this kind of support, you become depressed. So when you become depressed, it develops over time. And sometimes our systems don't favor us as well. Sometimes you look outside, or when you work in the settings of mental health, you see certain conditions and they get the support, the systems look after them, and people get treatment and they are able to move on with their life and do other things. But back home, or as Black men, sometimes the fear of coming out to even say I'm depressed is like, what do you mean? And the sort of encouragement we give to everything to make it look like everything should be normal. It's a man that has to have this ability. You are a mother, you need to be this. You are a father, you need to be this. But if you travel outside most of these African countries, somebody can actually say, look, my work is stressing me. I feel stressed and I feel depressed, and it's accepted. But if you are a Black man, even you don't want to even mention it because it's being seen as a sign of weakness, and nobody wants to feel this weakness. So I think that is why they are saying it's most common in African people, or Black people. I think this is where it's coming from. So my co-guest, you said you wanted to add something up to the question, so I'll give you the floor.
Okay. I want to also add that there is also lifestyle. I know that we already mentioned it. The guest has mentioned, and I think somebody else also mentioned it as well. the lifestyle that we have also does not actually help us, because we we have a way, first and foremost, apart from even looking at the financial burden and not having systems in place. Our even back home, I remember I will share this with my grandma. Actually became seriously confused. Even at that time, I was not even trained in the mental health, and she was so isolated to the point that I think she basically kind of died of almost out of sadness and loneliness much more, because nobody was able to understand where she's coming from. So we have that, our understanding how we comprehend this condition and the resources. And also we have our lifestyle, which does also help us as well. Even sometimes even our diet, the food that we eat, we are not actually kind of privy to all these things. So that also could become a contributing factor. While we have most Black people, and I think in my experience, men normally don't seek for even support, because if you're a man, you need to be able to manage it. Thank you.
Okay. So after we've all seen the demography of people affected with it, and we are also on this platform, I'll take this opportunity to say um, we should take care of ourselves and we should speak up when we feel like we are having any of these conditions, since we know we are more prone to it, so that we don't develop some of these conditions. And if you look at the demography, it's also telling you the number of home residents age 65 and over as well. So in each one of them, we also stand in there, it being we are young or we are old. And someone might have heard or might have read or may think that dementia only affects elderly people, but it can also affect what do you call it, people who are younger than the 65. And actually, I've ever nursed somebody who was 32 years old with dementia, and it's kind of sad not having spent much of his quality lifestyle but to develop this condition. So is there anything that the host will want to know or ask, or do you want us to continue?
So the host
Yeah,
is
hello.
here.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's fine. It was something that the other presenter said that I really want to add up to. You know, normally in Ghana they say "Bemensu." I don't know if you get it. Like a man doesn't cry, and so probably some of these things are also contributing factors. But then, just as you said, I think you can flow with the way you are going with it. I'm really liking it. So forgive me for coming in late. Okay.
Oh, it's accepted by them. Thank you for coming, actually.
All right.
Yes. So we are now on the midst of dementia. There are several things that we've heard about dementia. Several things. If we are going to mention it, everybody will have something to say. But I'll just let us go on the bits that I have here. I think at the end of the section, we'll discuss more. So there's this thing by Pfizer, and they say, is it a myth or is it a fact? So there's this thing about dementia is a disease. But according to Pfizer, dementia is never a disease. It's never a condition that you can call it as a disease, but rather it's a symptom of a disease. So this is something that we need to also understand. The fact is dementia is not a disease, but also a symptom. So, and there's this one that says that there's a myth that it brings about, because when we're talking about some of the signs and symptoms, we say memory loss and confusion are natural part of aging. No, not everybody that is growing will be. The fact that I'm growing, I'm 65, I'm 25, I need to have a memory loss. I need to be confused. And it's never natural part of age. So mostly we do this to our grandmoms, our adults when they are experiencing some of these things. When it's starting in the initial stage, they say, oh, I put this thing here, I can't find it. And we are like, oh, it's old age, leave them. It's old age. It's old age. So some of these things of snubbing it, making it look like it's old age, it's never true that it's old age. It's really because they are developing certain symptoms to the disease that is starting in the initial state. So if you are going to look at it, because most of the people that come for assessment, especially when you work in the A&E, for them to put them on doors and other things to push them into the mental health hospital for assessment and management to move them back either into their houses or the community or a care home. It starts from here. People bring in their parents because they are forgetting things. They were trying to cook, they forgot about the food, the food got burnt, or they themselves got burnt by doing something, or they were found wandering in the street and not knowing which house number to come into again. Or sometimes they are speaking with them and they realize that, look, I'm talking about, let's say, landing to Lancaster with mom, but mom is talking about maybe Australia to wherever. So the conversations are not going through. That is when people have to come in, assess them, and find out that really they are confused. What can we do for them? Should we start them on medication? Should we start them on therapies? How do we put them in this put them back into the society? Are we going to provide them with carers to support them and other things? So in our part of Africa where we are coming from, I think not all countries or not all people have the resources to fight for some of these things. But we as individual families, when we are seeing some of these things in our family members, it being our grandmom, our mom, our husband, our brothers, or anybody, we also have a rule. We don't need to make this myth like, oh, leave it, it's an old age. It's not old age. We have 90 years, good memory loss. They remember what happened yesterday. They remember what happened when they were like when they were growing. 20 years events, they remember it without any problem. So not the mere fact that you are growing old, you need to have a memory loss. So this is what I will talk about with the myth for now. And the another one is the fact that someone is having dementia. What I have noticed is we get some of them that really get some energy, and that energy doesn't last for long. So sometimes their energy can make them move, walk, or move from one distance. So they will say, this woman walked from maybe Kumasi to Accra. Then when they find her in the night, they're like, how did you walk from that village to this place? That is when we come with, they are witches. They were flying in the night, they were doing this. But maybe because we are not even keeping an eye on them, we did not notice that they've been gone for 3 days. We've not even noticed that they've been gone for maybe 1 hour or 4 hours. And the sort of energy that sometimes built in them because of the adrenaline, they can walk that distance and they don't feel what you call like tired or anything, and you find them there and you make all these kind of accusations and blame them and call them witches. Yeah, I can see someone's hand is up.
Thank you. So I would like to ask, so as you said, as the society that we are, you go to Africa and you see a lot of mad people on the road, and then we let them parade themselves around. Sometimes they abuse people, and then they do all sorts of things. And then the family, as you said, it's difficult for us to manage people of this caliber. So what can we do as a society? How can we help people that have had mental illnesses that are not able to be cared for because it is intensive, it is hard, and then family members can't actually take these responsibilities on themselves? I know in other places where there is the social care system, you get to pay some of your salaries every month. So when you are old, or when you are not even old, whenever you are sick in a situation where you can't manage it, the government steps in to take care of you. But as the society that we have, it is almost impossible because it is draining, it is financially demanding and all of that. So what can we do as a society to help people on the streets that are not really feeling well?
Okay, thank you. So, when it comes to mental health in general and where you find yourself counts, um, I used to work in the ward before I got to work in A&E, and I got to realize that the people that they bring to A&E are different from the ones that we meet in the ward. So by the time they come to the ward, they are more stable. So what I've realized is there are so many things that causes mental health, and sometimes because of our genetic component, somebody can have smoke a weed, and out of that one, they can have dementia, and they can have psychosis, drug-induced psychosis. And when they are coming in as proper mad people. They are the ones that fight, kicks, and everything. So depending on the state that you are meeting an individual, if our systems, it's not like we don't have it at all. We have them, but sometimes it's got to do with money and how you support the individual. So I always encourage people that no matter how bad it is, encouraging the person to go to hospital, seeking for the right treatment, and treatment doesn't kick in like a day or two, then it goes away. It doesn't go away. But sometimes there are ways of managing it so that you don't find them in the street. So I remember my first time when I came to UK, the first thing my uncle told me was like, because of the weather, everybody puts on coat. So be careful when you are in the lift because there are a lot of people who have got mental health issues. And I laughed over it. But over times working, I've seen that really, unlike where we come from and we leave them to be dirty, all things and do all these things. In this part of other countries where they've got a good support system, they have the regular ones that go for weekly reviews, monthly reviews. And there are some people that there are treatments that they give them like every six months. They give them sometimes injections. And it doesn't mean that when they are giving you all this medication, you might not even have any signs at all. But some of these medications that they give also have got their own side effects in terms of behavior and other things. There are some that we can manage with behavior. It's just like managing their behavior, supporting them and being there for them. And there are some of them that we really need clinicians to be there. Sometimes ordinary sepsis can make someone present with mental health issues. Ordinary sepsis can make somebody confused. Ordinary sepsis can make someone agitated and they can be worse because I've seen someone who has had a heart attack and due to lack of oxygen supply to the brain, this person was showing signs of aggression and was fighting all staffs and everything. But when we have sought that part of the system out, this person really became normal. And I've seen someone who took drugs, and after 3 or 4 weeks in a hospital facility, when these drugs were cleared out of their system, they became okay and they are back into the system with no problem. So it's all what I will say is when you find people with mental health issue, please don't take them to the what do you call it? Pastors for prayers. There's this beliefs of everything that we link to witchcraft, but sometimes what some of them needs is something particular because lack of vitamin B12 can even make someone present with other mental health conditions as well. And alcohol withdrawal can make people also have it. And people are stuck to alcohol not because they want to be, because when they are moving out of alcohol, they are getting this hallucination. And in our country, if you say, I'm seeing things in Africa, the tag that you'll be attacked with, you might even be stoned, or sometimes nobody will want to associate with you. So we just need to all of us in our individual corners try to educate the people that we live with in churches, in our local communities. And now I think like some countries are doing very well with the mental health. They are training people to do the education. So we all have a great responsibility towards our countries. I think my co-host wants to add more.
Yeah, I just want to also add that I'll just use this as an example. My dad is 92. Even though it's at that age, this particular age, he's very, very cognitively intact. So What I will say is that first and foremost, there is something that we call early detection. When you are able to detect the symptoms, early detection can actually reduce the progression of this kind of condition. So we will see the early signs when the person started becoming very forgetful. And then we started actually looking at what support that we can do to help to support this person. There's another therapeutic way that we use to support people when they have depression and they have dementia, reminiscence. That is when they become very, very depressed, forgetful, and they don't even know tomorrow from yesterday. So you use something like pictures, old pictures, and just to kind of talk to them through that old pictures and things that they enjoy most, and use that to almost like reduce the progression of this condition. So what we need as listeners and people who are do listen to this talk is that we, from our own small corners, we need to be very much watchful at these things. I did initially also talked about lifestyle. Sometimes we Black people, we normally, I think we just eat because we just want to get food. We don't even know, we don't even care where the food is coming from, whether it's organic, whether it's GM, whatever. And when we eat a lot of fats that are very unsaturated, that also causes, it's one of the major causes of dementia, because the lifestyle that you're living this now at this age will actually determine whether at some point in your life you're going to kind of have these kinds of condition, and whether you're in your family there is a history, then you have the genetic propensity for you to develop this condition later in later life. So you look at your family tree, see what is happening in your family, then try to do things differently. If we do that from one person to another, we'll be able to kind of mitigate these conditions and reduce, and also kind of educate our family members as well. Sorry. So enjoying talks like this is very, very important. It's a kind of a small way of actually breaking the narrative. So we all have a duty to ourselves and to our communities to make this narrative, to change this kind of trend in Africa. So let's watch what we eat. You are what you eat. If you eat junk, you are junk. Because one way or the other, you grow old, and some of these symptoms will become a problem for you. But if you look after yourself well, watch what you eat, obviously, you are going to be very healthy in future. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, my phone. I think my phone just went off, so I'll use trace from here. Oh, is it okay for me to talk?
Yes, it
Okay,
is. But I just wanted to chip in something. You know,
okay.
like you were talking about the food that we eat. Unfortunately, we are saddled with all kinds of bad food from the land that the crops are grown on and everything. You can't really blame the people that much, because the land is already destroyed, and so practically a lot of people too do not have the money to go and get organic food to eat. So on that score, I don't know what we can do as a country to minimize that. If you have any suggestions on how this thing can be solved, I don't know.
So what I would say is globalization is very difficult, but we doing things as individuals, yes, sometimes you can't get everything that you want because for unforeseen circumstances. And I always tell people when they are saying this is organic food, who determines what is organic? Is it the grower, the buyer, or who is bringing it to the market? So at the end of the day, if I decide to say this is organic, but if we all remember when we were, some of us were kids, in each household, we didn't know what we call pavement in our houses. We might all not be able to do that, yeah, to grow our little foods to eat from our backyard because not everybody has even got a house. But when we say mind what you eat, it's not always like there are certain things that you need because we need a proper, well balanced diet. Because someone who is just having a vitamin B12 deficiency, especially if you eat one particular type of food every day because it's your choice or because of poverty or whatever, or that is, I like this food. You can like a food, but sometimes for your own health, try to make a change in certain things and eat certain types of meals to help you balance your diet. Please, does it help in clarify what
Ye-
we just said?
yes, it does. It does really. All right, so I think we can continue with that. Oh, I see. Rita has raised her hand.
Yeah. So I do have a question, but before that I'll add on to the food aspect that we talked about. So as our host said, Ohima, she said when it comes to buying organic food and all of these stuff, I think what we can do to help ourselves, as the guest has said, we should eat varieties of food. Um, try and eat more organic food. So the thing is, we are having an issue with food at the moment because we all are not willing to step in and do the hard work. None of us wants to be on the farm to do things, add seedlings to the soil, to monitor, to harvest, and then to do it. So if you want organic things, use aid yourself. Hello. If you can get other in as much as you can get other things to help yourself, it is almost impossible because we all are not willing to put in the hard. So therefore, this GMO came about because there has been a shortage of food in the past. There has been a shortage of food. So imagine a world with a shortage of food and we can't do anything about it. It becomes a little bit stressful. So therefore, they developed a format of trying to get a way of growing food in a quicker way so that we don't get hungry. This is how come GMO came about. So there are so many ethical concerns with it, but in any case, there hasn't been anything like hunger. So what we are actually doing is what is triggering a response from people that are trying to help out. So in our own small way, we can do some gardening, or we can encourage people to have farms and then do a lot of organic farming, because organic produce are even expensive and that could even be a source of revenue. So I do have a question for the guest as well. So she said that medications do have complications, but I'm also trying to ask her, are medications important? If you are giving medications with mental health issues, should you take it or should you not take them? Thank you.
Okay, so as we all know, none of these medications that we take doesn't have any side effects. So I think it's sometimes the complications that comes with it. That is what makes certain people don't even want to take the medication for the mental health conditions. We all know that sometimes it makes a lot of people put on weight, especially belly fat weight. And there are some people that taking the medications and not even going for checkups, you can also develop worse conditions like kidney failure and other things. But it all depends on you as an individual, because especially with us, I go to the hospital, they give me paracetamol. Like, no, I wouldn't say paracetamol. If I say paracetamol, maybe you think that's paracetamol. Like, let's say if they give you a medication for a condition, maybe like you have schizophrenia and they are trying to give you a medication that will support you not to be having this hallucination or mood swings and other things. People try to take that medication for a longer time, try to buy it over the counter, try to acquire it from other places instead of going to the hospital to be checked. Because most people that are on certain types of medication, the maximum is every 6 months. That is the maximum. It's every 6 months. They do proper checks to check their livers, their LFTs and renal function tests and all those things to check to see if it's helping, where there needs to be changes. That's why pharmaceutical companies keep changing medication every time, because if you look into the BNF, we've got the yellow part of it, that's the yellow card. There are certain things that might not be part of the contraindications with the medication during the trials. But if you have it, they change it and they try to modify it, and it brings a lot of things. So with medication, we can't avoid it. Even ordinary paracetamol that we use as a pain relief for headache has got its own side effects, depending on the quantity that goes into your body. So for complications with medication, it will always come. But taking medication when needed, when it's going to support you, when it's going to bring your symptoms down, when it's not going to make you go into the worst state. And one thing we should know is, if you are on a medication, especially people with mental health, and you leave that medication, at the end of the day, leaving that medication can rather make your case worse. It can get you into what sometimes they call they've relapsed. And when you relapse, coming back to the track is very difficult. It's like when your car is stuck in a mud or in a pit. Bringing it up, you need a lot of energy. So there's a limit. We always titrate to see, we've got these levels in the blood. Do we need to reduce it? Do we need to top them up? How best are they managing on maybe once daily or twice daily? So when you've had those things, that's why it's always good to go for your reviews. I think that's the problem that we are facing. And if we look at the people that we have on the street, those that people get time for them, there are some mad people that we call mad on the street. When they get certain people to chat with, you wonder, are they really, really mad? So sometimes it's just that people don't have the supports. So if they really, really get the support, then they wouldn't have all these problems. I think we will just go into the how to reduce the risk of dementia. And I think we've discussed most of these things. We've talked about the exercise-based, eating a balanced diet, keeping a healthy weight. I told you the medication itself can give you weight. So if you don't keep a healthy weight yourself, the medication is going to add up to it. And especially with we people or Black people, most of us are already overweight. When we calculate our BMI, I would say most of us are already overweight, because most of us are within the ranges of 25, 26 by virtue of our height and how our body build-ups are. So, and we say low alcohol intake, but it determines how strong your liver is. And the food that we eat, the corn, we eat most fermented food. Unlike the whites, they eat less. They don't, apart from their cheese and other things, they don't eat more fermented food like the way we the Blacks, we eat more fermented food. So we already have the alcohol that our body needs. So drinking alcohol shouldn't be part of us. So when they are saying like 14 units a week, they are not speaking for us. They are speaking for, sometimes certain things are meant for certain categories of people, because there are some people that even when they go to hospital, they are encouraged to have a wine glass each every night to help them build their alcohol levels. So that is a prescription for somebody. That is somebody's medication, not yours. So we need to also reduce our cholesterol levels and eat more and stop smoking. Somebody will say, it's difficult. I usually don't tell people to stop. I always tell people to reduce, because gradually when they are reducing, it helps than when you tell someone to stop, especially when they've been chain smokers and they are smoking 15 packs or 15 sticks a day or 1 pack a day, and you tell them to stop. I always try to tell them, let's try to reduce it and save these pennies. And with time, if it becomes 2 puff or 1 puff, then we can add the others to it. Because in mental health, there's one word that we don't use, stop, or don't, stop and don't. It's like you are challenging the person and they will make sure that they will abuse it. Once you say stop, it's the opposite that they will do. So you always need to meet people halfway through and control our high blood pressure. So I think Mr. Kofi will want to add up something here. I'll hand over to him.
Okay. I just want to add something about, briefly, about the medication. There are a lot of different medications that has come out and a lot of research into dementia and trying to get what they are trying to look for a cure, but they have not actually got there yet. So what the medications that we have now, they are much more symptomatic medications that reduce the symptoms. Like if you have a person who has vascular dementia, which we know that it affects their coordination and the ability to kind of walk and also coordinate. So they start from one point, they don't know where they started, and they will just go round and round. They go out of the street and they keep on walking on the street, and they still don't know how to come back home. Those conditions. So what they try to do with that kind of using vascular dementia as an example. So what we try to do is that they give the medication that will slow them down so that they become less mobile, so that agitation and all those kind of aggressive behavior will reduce. So we need to be very mindful that when these conditions happen, the best solution and most evidence-based that everybody knows that helps is therapy, and that is you having a lot of people around the person. Isolation worsens it. People who are familiar and trying to. Africans and Black people, we live in a secular family. We live in a secular family. We have our siblings, a mother and family around us. So we have that. We are not like the whites who actually live very isolative lives. But the only thing that we are lacking is that awareness that this is something that we need to talk to the person. We need to encourage them. We don't need to shut them down. We need to do a lot of reminiscent work, looking at old pictures and just trying to bring them back to here and now, just to reduce the progression of the onset of this condition. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So we've talked about how to reduce the risk of dementia. So if we don't mind, can we go to the next slide, of which I think everybody's been waiting for? Thank you for your attention. Any questions or additions? It's welcome. So I'll leave everything to Madame Safwa and we'll wait for you all. Thank you very much. It was nice having you all.
Thank you so much. You've done so well, Miss Linda. We are so grateful. So just like you said, at this juncture, any questions or maybe suggestions? But then I will start with something. You know, back here in Ghana, they have the Gambaga witch camp. And considering all the things that you have said about dementia, obviously these are some of the issues with the women they have tagged as witches. Governments have come and gone and they've tried everything possible. It is still not working. What do you think we can really do as a country to put a stop to that Gambaga witch camp thing? Because obviously it is dementia most of these women have.
Okay, so thank you. I think I did study in Kintampo when I was in Ghana, and I think in 2012 Ghana had a proper system in place for mental health. Mostly our culture have certain things that comes with it, and sometimes what makes government feel is how we go about things. Because I think in the past we do have. I remember when they built the Tamale Government Hospital. They built a very big hospital, nice with beds, and people will come, and when you admit them, they don't want to lay in the ward. So, like people did study, and we've got to realize that they don't like the setup of the place. So they rather started, if you go to the Tamale Hospital now, they build this hut, like the one they sleep in their homes for them now. And now people are staying in there. And just like, as you said, when Koshoko started, they used to have the same thing up there, and people will put their children at their back, run in the forest, open their clothes, and when they fall off and you die, then it means that you are a child that is not meant to survive. So sometimes it takes time. That is what I said, that we all have our individual responsibility. Who takes this woman to the rich camp? Is their family. That is why we as individuals, we as organizations, when I say organizations, like we are in our individual churches, and we even have pastors who don't have much of this knowledge and everything, and they are also contributing to these people are witches, these people are witches. So as you said, I remember in 2012, we met and we had, because they said all the physician associates in Ghana, we met in Kumasi, and we had this thing that we can educate people. And I think for some time now, organizations have been coming in like Dementia UK, Dementia, other things, and they are supporting certain individuals. And as long as you are able to prove to people that this is what I said, don't tell people don't, but try to have the means and ways and meet yourself halfway through. If you are doing education, that is how you have to do it. Don't say you are wrong. Because the moment you try to challenge them, don't forget that they are also telling you that they are powerful. So that is how you work with some of these people. Because I remember when I used to work in Belgrade, this is what I used to do. I go to the villages and I go to the shrines. It doesn't make to me, this is how I did work, because I believe in the going to the system. So I go to the shrine and I tell them, look, when people are coming with epilepsy and they are fitting, it's true. Just as you will come with me, you, the witch doctor, will come to me with your chicken pox. Send these people to me. You direct them and tell them that you sent them. I'll give them the medication. They will take it. When they come to you, encourage them to come for their medication and be taking it, and we will guide them through. But they are your system, because don't forget that that is how they also get their food. So you can't take it from them. So it's the system is about how we communicate and work together as a team. If you are working with the chiefs, if you are working with the pastors, if you are working with everybody, then I think we can all make it work. I think that is the best solution. And we don't try to look, if we go with it is not witchcraft, they will not accept it. We are the health workers, they will not accept it, because they also want people to believe in them. So don't take out what they have. Work with them and it works.
All right, well said. I like the way you say we shouldn't really try. So a collaborative effort will do. That's very great. I believe if any other person has a question, the floor is open so that we can all learn more about dementia. So if anybody has a question, please, now is the time.
All right, thank you. I have two questions. First and foremost, thank you, madam, for the presentation. Even though I wasn't, I couldn't join at the beginning, but I want to find out patients who are admitted with dementia. Sometimes they escape. Is it detention? I don't want to say detention, but they escape from where they are being held because they complain that some of the medications are not comfortable and they are tired of it, so they find a way to escape. How are we able to track them or ensure that we encourage them to take the medications? That is one. Two, can accident cause dementia? Thank you.
Thank you. You see, what you first asked with them not wanting to stay, with all of us on this platform, will we want to be locked up in one place doing this, eating, sleeping, and watching TV every day for 12 months? No. So it all depends on us. So when you travel outside and you're looking after people with dementia, they have something they call All About Me. The All About Me tells you who the person is. And one thing is, we all are different. We can be identical twins, but our lives and our lifestyles may be different. So like some of these people are being brought out from maybe other developing countries and they've come to Ghana because they've got conditions, so they are being put into this hospital. But we as healthcare workers, do we really have the time to sit down, talk to these people, know them, know what they want? Sometimes we've dashed out all the medication in cast bed, 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed, for take it. We've given them the porridges, take it. Then we expect them to sit down there. What activities do we put in for them? So if I'm in there, you are not making me have any activities. You are not making me do anything. You are treating me like I am sick. I will be sick of the situation and I will always try to find my way out. But if I am in there, sometimes with what we've done before, what we do is sometimes they are the ones doing, it's not like you're making them work. You understand? Some of them, you can see they have got this OCD attitude in them. They want to clean, they want to do everything. So even if it's about food serving, it's not like you are using them. Oh, what will you want to do? What are we going to do? So you are planning the activities with them. You are making them feel like they are at home. Sometimes you take them to the garden. Sometimes you take them out and walk with them. Sometimes then they will feel like we are part of it. Sometimes they are able to support certain people. Some of them have got lifestyle. Some of them, we've got people who are doctors, lawyers, and other things. Because I remember working with a lawyer before. And what we used to do is we bring out a lot of papers, put them in file, then we put them in front of him and we are like, we've got several cases we need to discuss. So with this, he's like, we're going to read. Then you just say, oh, there's this divorce case, blah, 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 blah. So he feels like he's there in his courtroom. And we sit down there, we listen to him, and he's telling you, you can't do this because of this. You can't do that because of that, according to the law. And it's making him feel that sense of belonging. So this is some of the problems when it comes to our setting. How do we understand these people? If it's you, even you as a health worker being in that environment, you are bored. So it's how we put our systems, the activities we put in place. Do we do musical dances for them? Not everybody will be interested in one activity, but they will be interested in the other. So group them based on their experience, their lifestyle, know more about them and guide them through it. And they will not run away. And we shouldn't do stop. You are here. We are saying, you are not saying. They are human beings apart from their diseases. So don't be like autocratic on them. If not, they will run away. Make them feel the sense of belonging and let the family, always encourage family to come around. They shouldn't come and dump them there and be sending momo. They should come in, sometimes walk with them, chat with them, and have activities and games and all these things with them. And it works. It's not easy. I think, what was your second question?
I asked if accidents
Yes.
can result in dementia.
Yeah, so we did say that head injury can also, because if you have an accident and that part of your brain that works with remembering things, even sometimes when you are tired, some of us, we've experienced this before. Sometimes when you are tired, you can be confused, you can forget things and everything. Sometimes even when you're going to write exams and you refuse to sleep and you read all night, you'll be there. It's not like you don't know the question, but to remember that particular line to put there, you might forget. So a lot of things, trauma can cause it. Trauma can cause dementia. And dementia, as we said, is a symptoms, and there are a lot of mental health conditions that comes with it. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, hello. There's this another thing. I remember when as a kid, sometimes your mom would send you to go and get something from the room. You have it all set. It's in there. You know what you're going to look for. But by the time you get in there, you've forgotten. Is that part of dementia? Can we talk about? Is it also in kids? Because
No. Because when we are kids, we play a lot. We play around a lot. And if you tell me, if we all be truthful to ourselves, before they sent us to go and bring this thing, we are doing other things on the way. So it's not like, it's just that we are losing, we don't have that concentration for, sometimes your mom is even sending you like, oh yes, but you are really, really not listening to her. So that has got nothing to do with dementia. As I think the youngest person I have ever seen is 30 years, but I have heard that there are children with dementia. But as to me seeing one, I've not seen one, but there are children with dementia. But it's not something that you can just diagnose with signs and symptoms. Sometimes there are a lot of tests that they do. There's this test that they do with putting electrical things into some people's brain to check. So there are so many things that they do. So is to say somebody has got something. That's what we are saying is a symptoms. There are several symptoms. I can have a memory loss because maybe I'm even lacking vitamin B12. I can have low concentration because I don't have enough oxygen supply. So I can have any of these symptoms. I might not have dementia. Maybe it will just be that I have got infection. So when my infection is treated, whatever signs I am showing might come off.
All right, great. That's very interesting. I don't know if anybody has any other question. So if anybody has a question, please let's let it flow.
Can I add something?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. With dementia, I know that we have not. We don't need to go into the diagnosis. How is it diagnosed? It's not. It takes a lot of tests for diagnosis to occur. So you can't say that somebody has forgotten to maybe go and buy something, and maybe anytime you send the person forgets, then it means that they have dementia. Yeah, there are so many other parts that they need to kind of put together, and it takes quite a while. Some can even take about 6 months for a whole diagnosis to happen, because you need to see the trend of that happening, and you need to do MRI scans. There's so many other tests that you need to do to see the brain pathways, which part is being blocked, which part is not getting oxygen, which part is like dementia with Lewy bodies. You get a fat deposit actually blocking the neurotransmitters and the pathway for the blood to flow. So all these things are the things that you have to do for a diagnosis to be given. So we don't want to actually give the impression that after hearing this talk, you see somebody forgetting to send your child to go and buy kinky. By the time they came with fish, it means that they have dementia. No, it's not like that. There's quite a lot of diagnostic summaries that have to be put in place for that to happen.
Okay, if anybody else has a question, please, I think we can go ahead and ask.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Please, there is this stigma with people with mental health issues when you come to the African setting. So people with mental health issues, like a family will say, oh, like somebody going to marry, I wouldn't want you to go into this family because they have this issue. I don't want you to go into that family. Is it something right, or is it necessary? Is it essential to the family that do have the mental health issue as a genetic lined up for them, or is it also bad for the other person who does not have it in their lineage as well? So in both ways, how can we deal with it as a community?
Okay, so this question is one of the difficult questions to answer. It's not a straightforward yes or no answer, but as we rightfully said, some of these conditions are hereditary, just like any condition that is hereditary. So it's up to you to weigh the trend or study the trend. That's why in the past, they will say they are studying the family. So if it's hereditary, their mother has had, their grandmother has had, their great-grandmom has had. Let's also not forget that you are coming in, there's something that we call recessive genes in each one of us. Your partner might have skipped it. The fact that they don't have a certain condition doesn't mean that they don't have what causes that condition Or maybe there's like, let's say we've got your grandmother having 4 kids, and one of the kids is having children with mental health issues. The other 3 are not having children with mental health issues. There is a possibility that the other 3 that are not having children with mental health issues can have one, or in the near future, a child or a grandchild or a great grandchild that can have it. Yes, we can say because of love. Yes, we can say we want to reduce stigma. But it boils down to us, and it depends on what is causing the mental health disease. Because there are some families, due to how their genes are, all what they need is like take a drug. Like when we say drugs in other countries, when we say drug, some people can smoke weed. Just the path, one path, that is the end. So knowing who you are, where you are from, what you've learned about your genetic and whatever goes in there should tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do. So when it comes to issues of love, you can only advise people, but you can't force people to make certain decisions because they say love is blind. But if it's hereditary, you need to think twice before you make your choice. I think Kofi would wants to add.
Thank you. That's a very brilliant question, because it's something that in mental health that we do mention, that we describe mental illness as we have a model that we describe as stress and vulnerability. When we talk about the stress and vulnerability model of mental health, it means that there are some people who are born with a genetic propensity to have that condition. It does not necessarily mean that they're going to have it. No, it does not necessarily mean that they're going to have it. It means that if they get into certain conditions, they will have it. So, for example, if they have environmental stresses, they will not be able to, they don't have that resource to kind of manage certain environmental stresses. So then that condition will emerge. And or maybe there might be something about dietary, there might be something about some kind of vitamins that is lacking. That is from infancy, the child may have that kind of, they normally are born with lack of that particular vitamins. So that education, because we don't know, our forefathers don't know that education, they will say, oh, there's a mental illness in this family. So if you go and marry that family, and all or some of your children are also going to be mad. It's never true. The truth about it is that if that child does not look after themselves well, yes, they will develop that condition. And just not to digress, I'll use an example of myself. My parents, in my family, we have diabetes, blood pressure, and I think there are 3. So we have diabetes and blood pressure mostly, all my siblings. So what I did, I decided to do is then I decided to look at the food that I'm eating that will not make me vulnerable for me to develop diabetes or develop blood pressure. All my 9 siblings, all of them have diabetes and blood pressure, apart from myself. So it's your lifestyle and knowing where you are coming from, as my partner mentioned, that is what we need to look at. It's not about you marrying into a particular family. Yes, you have children who have a higher propensity or higher vulnerability for them to develop that condition, but it does not necessarily that they are going to develop that condition. It's only when they have kind of Western lifestyle and they don't do the right things and they don't do the right checks. There are some families that they have cancers in their family, but if you do the right thing, you still live 100% and not have any cancers. Thank you.
Sorry, to add up to this, it's not just mental health. There are certain conditions that we don't even know about. So when it comes to marriage and other things, it's broad. It's a broad thing, and because there are people with they call it terminal diseases, that is especially in women who never even develop ovaries at all. So when it comes to marriage and doing checks, I think if we're doing all the checks in marriages, then we wouldn't even, it will be a bit of difficulty. So I think it boils down to lifestyle and also proper education. But if you know, if you know, then you need to be preparing for it, because some people, as he said, can't manage stress. So that means that you who is going in with that partner, you should be willing not to stress that partner. Because don't forget that the moment you try to put stress on this person, you are going to be the trigger. You are. And when you are pregnant, you should also make sure that you yourself, you are not stressed, because your hormones and everything that you are doing also affects your child. So that means that you should be prepared to make a lot of lifestyle changes. Are we ready for those ones? If we are not, if we can't, then it's up to us. So it's how much you are ready to sacrifice it, because it's not just even mental health. Now we have a heart condition for family, heart family condition, that certain families have a higher rate of having a heart attack. And sometimes now, when people come to A&E, or some people come with chest pain and palpitation, we do that family history checks and they do the test. And if I am found to be positive, all my children needs to also do that test as well, because that is why some family, they say this family, they don't grow to be 40. It's because they don't even know that they have this heart condition that will kill them before the 40 years. So their lifestyle, because the lifestyle is, we are all eating fufu, we are all eating eba, we are all eating agusi, but maybe that agusi, there's a component in it that doesn't support what conditions we are. So we are a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to screening and our health issues. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Linda Mensah. It's been very educative. I believe that we've all learned a lot. We may bring the curtains down on today's program. It's been quite educative. I believe everybody here has learned a lot. And thank you all for the contributions and then the questions as well. My co-host Rita, if you're here, you can also take over.
Thank you to the host for today. Thanks to the guests. I would say guests. We had only one person, but we were fortunate to have the guest bring another person who is her partner. So we are grateful to the guest and the partner for coming in. And I would say that the response that you gave us were pretty awesome and quite on point, and then really helpful. So we are glad. And then thanks to every other person that came. There are people that do come on this meeting almost every day, and we are grateful. I would like to remind you that we do the session every Sunday, same time every Sunday. So do make it a point to be joining us, or share the link to our page so people can join us. We do so many educative sessions. So next week is going to be mental health as well. The topic is the need to be self-aware, and it will be presented by a doctor. So we would like to say that all of you could come in when needed, and then come and educate yourself. And then we are glad that you joined us, you are part of us, you are participating with us as well. So this is an appreciation to everybody. So I wish you all a happy week ahead, and have a nice time, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.